Welcome, Dr. LaShawn Williams.
Hello.
Or Dr. Wills.
Dr. Wills. Dr. Wills.
Dr. Wills.
Try to make it fun.
Thank you for being here with me today. And I'm just excited because we're going to dive into ADHD, specifically its impact on Black and Brown communities.
Yes.
Which is not necessarily spoken about quite a bit. Mm-hmm. I was doing some research and it was really tough to even find
things.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm excited to talk to you. Just with your background, you had a 20-year career in Utah's higher education system. And then you went into the healthcare and wellness space where you focus your expertise on working with adults with ADHD and guiding individuals, particularly women, through challenges of divorce and relationships and just all sorts of different pieces. You are a licensed clinical social worker for the past 13 years. You bring a wealth of experience as a contracted therapist, utilizing the powerful framework of acceptance and commitment therapy. What is that?
It is a mindfulness-based, values-based therapy. Comes out of behaviorism. I will go like full lecture mode, but it is about accepting the circumstance because the circumstance is, and I'll often talk to people like, it's like accepting the weather. You didn't cause it, you can't control it, you can't change it, it just is. And then the commitment piece is where you uncover, discover, rediscover your core values. And then the T is for taking action. So ACT as an acronym is about acting in your life in a values-based way. So mindfulness to accept reality, commitment to core values, and then action towards those values for a full, rich, meaningful life.
Whoa.
It's so great.
So it really brings you back to your true self, but in the moment rather than sort of getting stuck.
Yes, yes.
Sort of my way of saying
yes, it's the idea that instead of only being in your head and getting stuck by the thoughts that come like, rain, they pelt you like rain, or sometimes your thoughts are very sunny, but instead of getting hooked by bad thoughts or good thoughts, being able to accept that thoughts exist and that within those thoughts you can be hooked into them or you can be unhooked from them and still take meaningful action in conjunction with or separate from what your thoughts are. Like none of us worry about overthinking positively. We're not like, I'm just having so many positive thoughts. My gosh, I'm just ruminating about all the positivity. We don't worry about that. We're stressed out about negative thoughts. But the reality is we've got negative thoughts and we have positive thoughts and thoughts are thoughts. So being able to accept that is major because then if I can accept that thoughts are thoughts and they're just these things that happen, they're part of my brain's evolutionary capacity to keep me safe, to help me survive, then where am I at right now?
Yeah.
What am I actually experiencing? Do I need to pay attention to this thought for my survival, or can I say, thank you for showing up? I get it. Let me focus with where I'm at right here, right now. Anchor, drop into myself, and then what's my next move?
Whoa.
Yeah, so it's fun.
Well, even when you're talking about it, I'm just thinking how often I myself navigate just through my thoughts.
Yes.
Right? I'm in thought land
Absolutely.
all the time.
Absolutely.
And so
it's like
everything
a snow globe.
Everything that comes at me, I'm in that lens of thinking. But if I have this awareness of those are just thoughts,
yes,
I probably wouldn't be so reactive.
All of us, absolutely.
So there's that.
I talk about it with people. I'll say it's like a snow globe. You want to either be, if you're in the snow globe, can you just take a minute and like pretend winter wonderland, like, oh, look at all these cool snowflakes, right? But also with acceptance and commitment therapy, it's like, can you be in a place where now you are looking at the snow globe and you're not in it? Yeah. That's the idea of being unhooked from it, being separate from it. It's still there. It's still real. It still matters. But instead of being in it, surrounded by it, overwhelmed by it, you are observing it and then making a decision about how you want to function. So it's a lot of fun. I love it.
Wow. Okay, well, that's amazing. And that's a food for thought for a lot of people who it just kind of gets people to pause for a minute.
Just for a minute.
Even right now. Am I in my thoughts right now?
Yes,
so
yes.
That's interesting. Something about you are a student always.
Yes.
You put your 3 kids will attest to your love of lecturing.
Yeah. They're like, Mom, I just asked one question. I'm like, sorry, I didn't mean to start lecturing. Everything doesn't have to be a lecture, Mom. I'm like, I know, but like life lessons are not lectures, but they are. So yeah, they know I love to lecture. I'm like, you just love learning.
You're currently pursuing a final master's in social and emotional learning, mindfulness, and yoga. You personally navigated the burnout of academia. Oof, that one. that you're deeply passionate about supporting others and cultivating healthy identities and creating lasting positive change in their relationship, empowering them to live full lives, rich and meaningful lives aligned with their values.
Yes. If we could all.
And you're so caring. You're so caring and loving with the people that you work with. I know this firsthand.
Yes, I love my people. I love my people so much. And I tell them that all the time in the most professional and ethical ways. I love you very much and take good care of yourself, okay?
Yes.
So, yeah.
I know this about you. So, so tell me this. So in your own words, because the word ADHD gets thrown out a lot. People are constantly using it as if it's like a personality.
Yeah.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
And so could you tell us in your own words, what is ADHD?
Yes.
And then how does it uniquely impact Black and Brown communities?
Okay, yes. All right, so what ADHD is a neurological information processing disorder. That is what it is by definition.
Okay.
And when you understand that, then you can say, okay, neurological information processing disorder. What that does is it puts ADHD over in the category of like developmental disabilities, learning disorders, dysgraphia, dyscalculia, dyslexia, right? So the way the brain processes information is developmentally based. And so that means it's with you as your brain is developing in a uterus, right? And so as you come out, it's about the working memory, inhibition, control, and what's the third one? Like cognitive flexibility.
Okay.
So you're looking at these three things around executive function and how they develop from birth through life, through the entire lifespan. So a neurological means brain-based. Information processing disorder. Now, this is the part where how it impacts anybody, but how it impacts Black and Brown communities is where these layers start popping up. What is information, right? You're like, okay, well, if you're reading and you can't read well, you have a problem interpreting written information, dyslexia. If your handwriting it's not gelling, you're not able to write as you were taught in school. It's the ability to process how to handwrite. If you can't do math, right? Dyscalculia, it's the way you process numbers and information, right? But like, what else is information? Your thoughts are information. Your emotions are information. Your physical senses are information. And so now we're talking about emotional regulation. We're talking about sensory processing issues. We're talking about racing thoughts and having your thoughts that move faster than your mouth, right? And the way that it shows up in Black and Brown communities, depending on where the communities are, but just even within the community itself, how do you process family information? How do you process how we communicate? How do you process nonverbal facial expressions? How do you process tone of voice? Like all the ways that you process information are internal. Right. And so as you're responding to the information in your environment, this is why environment is so important, because everywhere you go, you're processing information. It's not just where you hyperactive in second grade. And so if we're only looked at by the physical manifestation of hyperactivity, attention deficit and hyperactivity disorder, if we're only looking for the kid who can't sit still, the kid that's always fidgeting, we're missing a lot of diagnostic criteria for everyone else in the room. Doesn't mean everybody has ADHD, but it does mean if we focus on how people process information, we're getting closer to like honoring the diagnostic criteria that can be helpful. And so within Black and Brown communities who are consistently adapting to environments externally, how you process information about why we do certain things, when to speak up, when not to speak up. If you think really quickly and you happen to think faster than an adult in the room, right? But it's because how you process information, that is not seen as...
It's disrespectful.
It's disrespectful, exactly.
Yeah.
If you notice a hypocrisy, if you notice something that's out of line, if you can, focus really well on certain things, but then if you can't seem to remember where you put anything, there are all these character deficits that get placed on us within Black and Brown communities because you're looking at communities that have to survive really oppressive structures. And so we don't have time for you not to get it. You better figure it out. Yeah. Survival depends on it. So we don't have to, you can't read it, figure it out, make it up. And it's, my stepdad, when he was a little kid, couldn't read, but he would make up stories about the pictures that he saw in the book. And people just thought that he could read, but, cardiothoracic surgeon, and got himself through so many things because survival means you better get this academics, you better get a job, you better get a career, you better be secure. Because if you're not, there are so many other people depending on you to be secure that you can't afford to have deficits.
No.
And if you do have deficits, they're not brain deficits. There's something wrong with you. You're lazy, you're disorganized, you're messy, you don't care, you're disrespectful. And so the way that it shows up in Black and brown communities is we think that we've got these character deficits, and there's no room for us to explore that maybe it's neurological, maybe it's brain-based. And it's not that there's anything wrong with it being neurological or brain-based.
Right, yeah.
We just need help and support once we actually know what it is. Sorry, long answer
No,
to a short
perfect.
question. The faculty and me will not go away.
Faculty needs to stay. Bring her in. It's fine. Well, I'm curious because we say disorder, but is there a difference between neurodivergent and then disorder? Because there's ADHD and then there's autism or being on the spectrum. And is there a difference?
They're both developmental.
Okay.
And the thing is, ADHD is the most treatable.
Okay.
By virtue of like medication. Most of your learning disorders, there's not a medication for dyslexia. There's not a medication for dysgraphia. There's not a medication for dyscalculia. There's not a medication for autism. There's a medication for ADHD, and it's one of the only developmental disorders that I think we can see success with medication. And so this is the other piece, right? ADHD is not a mental health disorder. It's a disorder of lacking, it's a disorder of having deficits in executive function. Your ability to remember, structure, and organize.
I was going to ask you, how does it show up? Yeah.
Your ability to have impulse control or be able to access inhibition. So there's stimulus and then there's like response. And you are able to decide what you will do because you understand that not everything has to be immediately reactive. If you don't have the ability to inhibit your impulses,
you're just always reacting,
always moving, and whenever you feel it, you do it. And so working memory and then cognitive flexibility. So our black and white thinking, rigidity in our thoughts, like this idea that something can only be one way, so we hyper-focus. Then that's also the other side of that is time blindness, where I have no sense of time. I have no sense of whatever this thing is that I need it in order to show up and function. So for me as a kid growing up, like my mother will always say, we'd be running out the door and you'd be asking me to grab something off the printer because you forgot it for school. So with ADHD, you're looking in your life as a child, especially for those of us who are diagnosed as adults. I was diagnosed at 43 and not always wondered if I had ADHD, but I'd grown up for those 40 plus years just thinking something was wrong with me. Always forgetful, always disorganized, messy room. And my mess, like the sensory about being messy, didn't bother me the way it bothered my mom or really anyone else. But there were so many signs and things that I did as a kid that were just blamed on me being a bad person, basically. Being shamed.
There was this label put on you quickly.
Yeah, that there was something wrong with you. And if you would just do this. Any person with ADHD has always heard, if you would just focus, if you could just discipline yourself, if you could just what is it that people will say? If you could just focus, if you could just discipline yourself, if you could just try. We've grown up our whole lives hearing that. It's not that we can't try, but like we are trying. That's the whole thing. It's like we are trying.
Yeah.
And it's like, you're so smart. In my household, you got so much book sense, but no common sense because you can't keep up with anything.
Yeah.
So you have all of these competing labels being placed on you. And when you're a kid, you don't have a whole lot of ability to differentiate between, is this real or is it not? And then you do start taking that on as an identity. So it's not bad or it's not wrong for folks to take ADHD on as an identity. Look at how their life has been. They've taken on so many other things as an identity too, but this one is the one that maybe now they'll understand me if I take this on as my identity,
Yeah. So when you were diagnosed at 43, what did that do for you? I mean, first, how did you even consider, what was that process of being like, oh, I might have ADHD. What does that assessment look like for you? And then once you were diagnosed with ADHD, what happened after? What did that do for you?
Yeah. So the inklings that I might have ADHD came from working at a residential treatment center where we focused on young adults 18 to 26. And part of our assessment of our kids, our young adults, was to look at a full-scale IQ test. And they taught us to look at a person's like verbal working memory, verbal processing speed, and compare it to their basic processing speed of information. and if there was a gap. Because what we ended up having was we had a lot of kids that were 120, 130, like very, very smart in verbal reasoning, very, very smart in how they process information. Like they could talk fast and they could keep up with a conversation. They could talk circles around people. But when it came to the score of their processing speed of their brain, they'd have 120 in like verbal reasoning, but then their processing speed would be like 90. You have a 30-point gap, which means you can't process information as quickly as you're taking it in.
Got it.
And so when you're taking in information and you have a neurological information processing disorder, we would talk about this thing, we would call it a funnel. So the funnel is this big up here. But by the time it gets here, you're trying to get a whole lot of information into a very, very, very small space. So when they taught me to...
That's an interesting... Yeah, that's interesting the way you demonstrated that.
Yes, because the idea is you take in all this information so everyone knows you're smart. Yeah. You can take in all the information. You know so many things. Why can't you get it together? Because I can't process the information as quickly as I'm taking it in.
Right.
And I don't know how to tell you that. And so because I don't know how to tell you that, all of my other behavioral things start changing. And then I get anxiety because I know something's going on, but I can't communicate it. And so now I'm anxious. And then I mess that up. And then now my depressive symptoms are up. So everything starts cycling. And when I worked there, I was like, I am never getting an IQ test done because I don't want to know. I saw myself in those kids. I saw myself and I was like, oh my gosh, I wonder what my scores are. I wonder how big of a gap it is between my verbal reasoning and my processing. And we talked so openly about executive function deficits. As therapists, everyone's always worried about paperwork, getting your notes in on time. We all talked about the struggle of getting your notes in on time as an executive function deficit. And so, to be plain, like I'd always find myself in different employment situations struggling to, sometimes I could nail it and I'd have things in on or before a deadline. Otherwise, I was always struggling, always overwhelmed, always under it. And I'm like, I knew I wasn't stupid, but I kept running into these issues and I'm like, do I need to get diagnosed or something? Like maybe I'll just see if that's what's going on, because the more that I started learning about it just casually, that experience of being a year at a residential facility where we focused on executive deficits and ADHD and how mental health and ADHD always usually brings a friend with it, some sort of mental health disorder, right? And then it got to a point where I just kept feeling like things were crashing in on me. Life outside of work, life at work, everything was just so much. And I just couldn't get my feet underneath me. And I was like, let me just go get diagnosed, because if something is going on, I'd rather know and then see if there's something I can put together. So I just wanted to do it, just to kind of see. And I remember when the therapist was walking me through like the checklist and diagnosing me.
Is it like a series of questions?
Series of questions. So there's the adult self-report scale that you can do, but then as clinicians, we usually have a longer one that we walk people through. And she said, I remember it so clearly, she said, when you're in conversations, do you ever find yourself struggling not to complete someone's sentence, right? And I almost said that, and I was like, on the phone, right? And I'm like,
like literally right now.
Literally right now in this exact moment, right? And I remember laughing about it. But when she walked through all of it, and she said, your ADHD, it sounds like you have ADHD, and it's the inattentive type. Can't pay attention, can't find things, can't remember things, can't organize things, because I can't pay enough attention to do it in the time that it needs to be done. It literally felt like the heavens opened up. Wow. It literally felt like they opened my brain up and they put it in this piece of paper to diagnose me with being me. That's really what it felt like. And it was like, there's a name. There's a name for this. Yeah. There's stuff that people have realized. And, I use a lot of books with my clients, and I'll say, I need you to be okay with me recommending a book to you, because what I want you to know is that because somebody wrote a book, it means you're not the only person who's gone through it.
That's right.
You're not the first one, the only one, or the last one, because somebody wrote a book about it. Yeah. Same thing with all these scales. You're not the first one, the only one, or the last one. There's a scale to help you figure out if this is what you're dealing with. And I've done scales on people with folks, and they have some, but not all. So you've got some executive function struggles, but you don't meet the criteria for a diagnosis. And that's okay, too. People still have executive function deficits without having attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. That's an important thing.
So there's a big, there's so many different variables. And
there are so many variables, yes. And that's why I'm not big on diagnosing folks, because I don't want them to feel stuck with criteria. I don't want them to feel criteria-based or criteria stuck. Like, there are some things that if we can name it, we can figure it out, we can tame it, we can neutralize it, we can help.
Yeah.
But if you feel like I need the diagnosis, and there is a bit where I think it's like, oh, finally, it's not me. Like, I'm not stupid. I'm not an idiot. I just have ADHD. And you kind of do need to sit with that for a little bit, because you have to be able to accept that that's real, because there's this relief and then there's this regret. The regret that you knew it wasn't you, but you grew up with so many decades of someone telling you that it was
you.
It was you, and that you were a failure, and that you were shameful, right? Yeah. I found this letter my mom wrote me. And so this is like peekaboo, a little bit of like compulsive hoarding stuff for my life as well. But I found a letter my mother wrote for me, 1998, fall of my sophomore year. And she wrote it 9 p.m. I don't know when I got it, but I remember it was fall of sophomore year, September of 1998. And she wrote me this letter. She says, LaShawn, please read this often. I swear if you flunk out of Duke, I will never be your friend again. I promise. I am as serious as cancer, Mom. And so, you know, sophomore year, you're at this Ivy League school that you didn't want to go to in the first place, but you were smart enough to get in. And all this stress is happening at this school, and you're there. And then your mom writes you a letter and says, I'm never going to be your friend again if you flunk out. Mind you, had you already flunked out, basically, yes, freshman year was awful, horrible. And sophomore year was trying to figure it out with organic chemistry, because I still was going to try and do pre-med, right? 2 semesters
Pre-med.
Right. 2 semesters of organic chemistry, 3 semesters of like chemistry 101. Like, I kept failing chemistry. And I'm supposed to be a doctor. I'm supposed to go to this good school and get it. And I remember in summer school, my chemistry professor, again, like information processing, there are like these core memories that I have about information processing. He had the balls and the stems, and he was making a model of a chemical element or whatever. And I just remember sitting in the class and being like, I don't get it. And it was a small class. It were like 5 or 6 of us. And like, we actually still communicate with each other to this day, because we had that summer together in chemistry with him. And I was like, I don't get it. I don't understand. And I remember he came to my desk and he sat down right in front of me, and he did the model right there in front of me. And he was like, what part are you missing? And I was like, all of it. I don't know how this is I don't know what any of this is. And I remember he walked me and got me through it enough where I could pass. I think I got like a B in chemistry for that summer, right?
Okay, so he wasn't trying to.
No. Amazingly engaged.
Yeah,
amazing, ready to come one-on-one right in front of me, just me and him. And he sat down and he helped me get it, because clearly I got it enough to get a B out of the class.
Yeah.
And I know that he didn't fudge my grade to get me through.
Yeah.
But when you're in college at an Ivy League university and you can't understand chemistry in a way that everybody else seems to be getting it, that's the other thing. It's like, everyone else is getting it. How come I'm not getting it? Yeah. And you live with this experience of everybody else getting it, getting something, where your brain is not processing information the same way. No. And so life isn't built for everyone to stop what they're doing, come sit on the desk in front of you and show you a chemical element, all the molecules that go into it.
Nope.
But that's literally what some of us need.
Yeah.
And we don't realize that. So then we're working in these different jobs, we're in schools, we're in these environments that are not built to support us. They're not built to see us. They're not built to structure an environment in such a way that we can function because of how we process information. Everything in the environment is what we are interacting with and trying to process, and we're not processing it the same way as everybody else. No. Sorry, another very long sentence answering to your question, but yeah.
Yeah, so I'm thinking about your childhood and just being told, to do better.
Yes.
In some sense. And then the letter from your mom later on in your life. When you found out you had ADHD or you have ADHD, and you said something about there being a pause moment where you had to kind of sit with it.
Yes.
What was that process of undoing for you?
Yeah.
Because I imagine there would have to be quite a bit of detachment with the things that were thrown at you.
Sure.
And you kind of mentioned that some of it was internalized. What has that process been for you?
Yeah. The big thing, so, there's the relief and then the regret. And sometimes there's a little bit of like reparenting, but you're also trying to like figure out what the heck am I supposed to do now? Now that I know, what do I do? Yeah. And it's hard because it's like, I know I'm not stupid. And I remember being able to say, it's not that I'm not disciplined. And one of the things that I think we do with ADHD is we're really good at like talking through and around and out of things. And so you can feel really anti-establishment. Because I was like, college, what does it mean? All it means is that I was good at showing up and sitting in class and turning stuff in on time. Does it really mean that I learned anything? Because I wouldn't read any of my college textbooks until after the semester. And I love my college textbooks. But I got through school not reading and just kind of showing up. And it's like you're sitting there like, was I stupid? I really don't think I was stupid, because I would have experiences where, gosh, there were just so many things that like reaffirm, like, I know I'm not stupid, but something's wrong with me. My brain, I'm not getting it like everybody else is getting it. But I knew how to think fast. I know how to talk circles around people. I know how to predict and anticipate what someone else is going to say. I know how to focus. Like, there's some brilliance that comes along with it.
Yeah.
And you're trying to figure out, okay, what do I give credit to? Do I say that I'm brilliant because of the diagnosis, or am I brilliant anyway? And I think both are true. And so once you realize, okay, the diagnosis is why a lot of things didn't make sense. And so now that I know, what else do I need to learn about myself so that I can help myself be successful? But then also so much compassion and grace for a little kid you that honestly believed you were stupid, that you were a failure, that you had these major insurmountable character deficits, and that your existence was the problem. That messy room, like I had to live in the basement because my mother couldn't stand seeing my messy room. And so it's like, you go through it and you're like, oh yeah, I live in the basement, whatever. But then you think about it, like, it wasn't a finished basement. It was just me in a section of like this concrete military housing, and like the washing and drying machine was like right across. So I like had to use the wires to section off my room by hanging my clothes so I could like make a room for myself. But to think about that, and my mother and I have talked through a lot of things and we're fine. But like to think about that someone can't stand to see your teenage room. And so instead of that, you get banished out of sight, out of mind in your own home. Yeah. And everything that's wrong about you is because you're messy and because you're disorganized. And, well, if you can't figure out how to do it, then you're going to fail. I was the last minute queen. I couldn't get anything done until the last minute. I tried one time to get something done early, and then my anxiety was through the roof for the next week because it was done. And the night before it was due, I stayed up all night and redid the entire paper in grad school. Wow. I'm like, why do I do this? I don't know. I just do it. Yeah. My brain doesn't do things like everyone else's. And so when it's this cyclical realization with yourself, of yourself. You start noticing little things over time. You're like, oh, was that the ADHD? That makes more sense. Yeah. Was that, that makes more sense. It's so confirming. So you're like getting confirmation, and then you got to come up with compassion. It wasn't your fault. Confirmation, this was true. This wasn't your fault. Confirmation that this is, and look at how you figured it out anyway.
You're reframing all
You are reframing all of these moments.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes,
Wow.
yes. And it's ongoing. Yeah. There's so many things, like looking for my child's past Social Security card so she can do her driver's permit. I hadn't seen that thing in years. But because you hold on to things, you hoard, you're messy, you're disorganized, you're cluttered, like that's still with me. I haven't overcome any of that stuff. I'm still actively working and trying to figure it out. But I remember when we found her Social Security card and it was where I thought it was, which was not with me. Again, another wave of, see, it wasn't your fault. It's okay. You were right. You knew, but I was still willing to take the hit. I was willing to be blamed for losing something else once again. Yeah. I was willing to do that because I'm like, well, the likelihood, if anyone's going to screw it up, it would have been me. Yeah. But then to realize it wasn't me. I was right. This did work because I don't lose anything. Yeah. And I lose everything at the same time. It's just this constant process of being so compassionate with yourself, because the same people that told you were goofy are not the ones who are going to be compassionate with you. So you can't go to them like, look, see, ADHD. Do you know what my mom said when I told her?
What did you tell her when you talked to your mom about this?
I was like, Mom, look, I got diagnosed with ADHD. I knew something was wrong with you. I was like,
she just went right into it.
Like I couldn't have made it up. She's like, I always knew something was wrong with you, and I'm like, of all times, Mom,
I think this is so interesting, though, that what you said, that those who were maybe the most critical of you can't go back and say to them, by the way,
look at the explanation,
because it's a different line of thinking.
Yes.
Like there's no way of convincing them.
Yes.
they're reflecting something on themselves to you. They're projecting onto you. And
Absolutely.
so, and nothing against your mom.
No,
your dear mom,
of course.
But just this idea, the most harshest of people in your life
are not going to magically change overnight because you have a diagnosis.
That's right.
Your diagnosis is going to fit their narrative anyway. But as she has learned more and seen different things for me, leaving higher ed, getting into entrepreneurship, it's the funkiest thing. Somebody will say one thing, and little you was like, thank you. My mom said, you aren't meant to fit in anybody else's box, LaShawn. You have to go and do something on your own. Your brain, what did she, in her own way, she was like, your brain just doesn't work like that. You can't be in these places. This is not, it's, in her way, she was saying it's not built for you.
Yeah.
But she said it in the most validating way so that 8-year-old me, 15-year-old me, 16-year-old me, 23-year-old me was like,
and breathe.
Thank you, finally, right? And even being able to say thank you to her wasn't going to necessarily like be this hallmark moment, but I needed the validation that in some way she finally did see me.
Yeah.
And she finally did validate that I'm different and that it's okay and that I can do something with it so that I can be well and that I can be healthy.
Yeah. 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 And this, this idea, so I'm thinking about these social implications. So, you know, you're a woman of color.
Yes.
You went to Ivy League school. You did all of these different things in your life. What are the layering of this? So you have your family, you have the critics, but then you have the social aspect of racism, sexism, all the isms.
Yes.
How is that layered into all of this?
It's your strong Black woman stereotype. It's now we're talking more about like functional anxiety and functional depression in the same ways that we talk about like functional addicts, functional alcoholics, right? But this idea that you can function and be very like disabled in some ways. And then there's this societal expectation, well, that's just who you are. You're a strong Black woman, nothing's going to break you. And it's like, well, I'm not allowed to break. I'd like to, but then you start kind of like doubling in and turning in on yourself to make sure that you keep functioning. Because someone is depending on you to function and to function well, at least well in their eyes, well to their comfort level, well to their benefit, not yours. Yeah. And so you have the layers of being a woman, being a person of color. What's your economic standpoint? Are you working hard enough? Because that's all that people seem to notice and name. It's these tangible things that we focus on when it's these intangible things that we don't have language for. Yeah. And because we don't have spaces for the intangible, then we're going to work and we're going to overwork. We're going to overcompensate. We're going to overfunction because that's the baseline that society has told us. This is where you start. And you see other people resting and rejuvenating and they're allowed to fall apart and whatever else. And you're like, I can't do that.
Can't afford it.
I can't afford it. That's a cost that I don't have the account to cover. And so you have all these layered pieces. And the thing is, I don't mind working hard. Yeah. I love being a hard worker. I love attaching and throwing myself into work. I don't think there's anything wrong with that as long as you build repair, recovery, and restoration into it. You can't work hard for the sake of working hard and then wonder why you're crashing out, why you're burning out. So it's not like we shouldn't work hard at all. No, I think we value working hard. We value getting something from our efforts. And if on a scale from 1 to 10, 8, 9, 10 is where I know I'm maxing out. And sometimes you're at an 8, 9, 10 by choice or by circumstance. If you can get there by choice, you know, this is going to be tough. It's going to be a 12 out of a scale from 1 to 10. But because it's a 12, what am I going to do to mitigate that as best as I can until it's back, within range? That's recovery, that's repair, that's restoration, that's interrupting it enough so it doesn't build up and blow up. But it's not working hard. It's not applying yourself. It's not going to a complete opposite or another extreme where you're not showing up. And so I think that's the other balance too. You are expected to do these things. Okay, so then how do we expect to rest? Yeah. How do we expect to recover? Because we come from generations behind us that absolutely did not have the options and the opportunities, but they did find ways to maintain their humanity. And we have the same responsibility because we stand on shoulders of giants who worked really hard, but they still found ways to maintain their humanity. Well, then me too. When I learned that Rosa Parks had a 4-decade yoga practice.
I didn't know that.
She was a yoga instructor.
I didn't know that.
Yes. And I'm like, well, then that's how she sat on the bus. There's nothing else but a yogic center in many ways allows you to sit in the face of oppression, in the face of violence, and to say, I will not move. You can't, that's not an externally focused thing. If you focus externally on people threatening you and telling you to move, you're going to get hooked in by those thoughts.
That's right.
But if you go inside into that core and you're one with yourself, that's where you are when you sit and you refuse to move and you're willing to be arrested. Yeah. And you know that what you're doing is something that's for a greater cause and a greater purpose. Nothing but being centered and accessing wellness is something that allows you to do that. So when I learned that, I was like, oh, okay, cool. I can do anything at this point. I just need to make sure I'm resting. Yeah. Because if Rosa Parks did yoga, okay, cool. I can learn ways to help myself rest, restore, and recover as well.
I did not know that.
Yeah,
I'm
cool.
curious about all the social justice, leaders, our ancestors. How many of them utilized? Yeah. I know they have utilized these very culturally driven ways to find faith within themselves, to find that stillness, so that they can combat.
Surely.
In the most internal way.
Yeah.
You were talking about.
Yeah. You have to know yourself.
Yeah.
And so when I have my therapy clients, I'm like, therapy is an intense process of self-knowledge. My goal in my work with anybody is, how can I help you know yourself so well that anything around you is happening and you can respond to it because of how you know yourself. Yeah. It's not about me helping you change anybody else outside of you, because they're not in this room with me. It's me and you. Who are you? How do you find your center? How do you trust that you have a center that is a place where from that center, then you can act? Yeah. Whatever the diagnoses are, whatever the criteria are, I tell folks, yeah, I can diagnose you. There's 8 criteria for you to meet this diagnostic code, and I can tell you about the 8 criteria. My goal in our work together, I cannot cure you of all 8 of them. This is how you learn to be a person in the world. This is what your genetics gave to you as you came into this world. If you meet the 8 criteria, my goal is to have you meet 6 as opposed to all 8. Mm-hmm. But I can't get you down to 0. That's not within my wheelhouse, and that's not going to be conducive to your growth. You've got the criteria. Okay, cool. How do we help you function?
Now it's knowledge and awareness. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. And to understand, okay, because I have these criteria, this is how they show up in my life. And if I can really address this one and make it less damaging and less overwhelming and less debilitating, I think the other ones might calm down too. Yeah. That's our work. Yeah. That's our work. So with ADHD, there's a lot of compensatory stuff that you have to do to be able to function. If you struggle with time blindness like I do, which I never knew there was a name for it.
Time blindness.
Time blindness. I don't have a good sense of time. Yeah. At all. Yeah. And so there were a lot of hard-won things that I did. But when I learned that there was a name for it, I learned what it did, and then I learned how to create a relationship with time. It's simple things. Like if you get a clock that has hands on the clock instead of a digital clock, the shape of the clock moving will tell you how much time you have. And you're like, oh, as that shape gets smaller, I have less time. That's how your brain relates to it, by focusing on the shape as opposed to the numbers. Okay. For other people, you need to know the numbers, but if time doesn't mean anything to you, okay, it's 10:20, I got to be somewhere by 11, I should be leaving by 10:30. That means nothing to me because it's just all numbers on a clock. But if you learn time blindness and you understand it, I love my clients for this, because I've been blessed to work with people who are good working with me. I had a client gave me an AirTag for my keys. I got oh wow! I had texted. I'm like, sorry, I'm running late. Can't find my keys. And within a week or two of that same session, they're like, we got you a gift. And I was like, what is it? We just don't want you to be offended. And they gave it to me. It's an AirTag. I'm like, what do I do with this? You put it on your keys. I'm like, shut up, really? Oh my gosh, this is amazing. Had no idea. But I laughed at it. But I'm like, these are people who know me and want me to be successful. Yeah. Right? And so they gave me an AirTag for my keys, so now I don't lose my keys as much. Smart. Brilliant. It closes the gap. My phone can find my keys. If I lose my phone, my watch can find my phone. My iPad, there's so many. So this goes into
it's all interconnected.
It's all interconnected, but it's so important about how your environment is set up.
You're creating your own system.
You create your system to help you cope with the fact that you can't measure time. Yeah. So it's.
What are some other characteristics or other sort of
besides time blindness? Yeah. Yeah. One of the things that kind of clued me in for myself was I can't estimate. Okay. So if a robbery happens, don't ask me. What did the suspect look like? How tall were they? How did they look? How much did they weigh? Taller than me. I can't tell you somebody's height. I can't estimate weight. I can't estimate distance. If you ask me how far it is from here to this wall, my brain is like, okay, I'm 5'9". If I lay down, would my feet touch the wall and would my head be back here? So is it maybe 6 feet? I have to think about how many of me it would take to measure something. My brain doesn't estimate.
So very visual ways
Very
of
visual
kind of
ways, understanding time, spatial awareness, bumping into things. You're not aware of your environment. Time blindness, not aware of time. Impulse control, finishing people's sentences and jumping into conversations, blurting things out, interrupting, being chatty with people that are around you. Oh, she's so social. She's so this. Yeah, because she can't tell herself to wait and listen and hear somebody else's perspective. Forgetfulness, disorganized, messy, misplacing things, losing stuff all the time. I lost a wallet. I don't know where it is. I think it got thrown away in the garbage. But then you'll start seeing the mental health things that come along with it because your body is like, oh no, oh no, oh no, something bad, something wrong.
Is anxiety part of ADHD, or is that something that comes on because of dealing with ADHD?
Yes. So because ADHD is not a mental health disorder, your mental health disorders, your anxiety, your mood disorders, your depression, even personality disorders, like there's so many things that come along with it and exacerbate it. But because you don't know that your ADHD is facilitating or contributing to a depressive episode, and this is one of the ways that you can figure out if it's an ADHD-based depression or a more clinical based depression. Simple things like people will say, yeah, if you go work out, it helps you when you're depressed because it's biology to biology, right? Working out with the body is going to help the mind so far as it being chemically impacted by, hormones and neurotransmitters and chemicals. Working out might not work for you if you have ADHD because it's not the brain-based chemical thing. It's the executive function, working memory, organization, disorganization. That's why I have some people like, I have to go organize something. I have to go clean a room. I have to go move furniture around, and then I feel better.
Yeah.
It's not, I'm going to go to the gym and work out, and then my endorphins are going. That's not what we're going for. You have to actually be able to do something. And if you notice that your depression or your anxiety abates when you do something, then that's going to be more likely the ADHD side of ADHD-induced depression as opposed to your solely biologically based chemical neurotransmitter, chemical imbalance depression. Working out will balance out chemicals because it's directly based like in the body. Whereas your ADHD is about what am I doing? And if I can go do something, then that is what relieves some of the depressive symptoms or some of the anxiety symptoms.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. That's so is there a, you and I, before we even started this, we were talking a little bit about how there's just a big awareness on ADHD, specifically around social media. Everybody's talking about it. Everybody has it. Everybody's undiagnosed and just kind of free willy-nilly, just talking about it. Why is that? Why is ADHD now really broadly and very widely talked about? And is that liberating? Does that feel liberating, or does that feel a little like minimizing?
So they have a name for it called cyberchondria, like hypochondria, but cyberchondria. Yeah, it's the idea that we see it. And I think, growing up, we'd see it too, like the little Prozac ball that would jump and we're like, oh, maybe I have depression, right? So marketing works. And so you've got marketing, social media, and you've got people who are sharing their personal stories and personal experiences. And social media is about relatability. So of course we're going to relate. Of course we're going to see, does this match what I go through too? And it doesn't mean that if you have executive function deficits, that won't mean that you have ADHD. It just means you have executive function deficits. ADHD includes executive function deficits, but executive function deficits can exist without it being related to ADHD. And when you see a lot of it on social media, of course, you're going to work to relate to it. You're going to work to connect with it. And then we have a lot of people like self-diagnosing. Wonderful. Gather the criteria and then go talk to your healthcare provider and ask questions and ask for an actual assessment. there you run into the issue of, oh yeah, sure, and they give you medication. Medications aren't bad. Like actually some of the safest medications on the market are ADHD meds because they've been studied for like 30 or 40 years clinically.
Wow. What are those medications?
So you've got your stimulants, you have your non-stimulants, and you have some of your like off-label uses. So methylphenidate, Adderall, what are the other ones? Concerta, your name brand stimulants and non-stimulants. And stimulants and non-stimulants, right? So caffeine, things like that. And people hear the word stimulant and get worried, like, oh, you're going to be addicted. You can't get addicted to a stimulant medication if you have ADHD. So the kids that are...
This is very key.
This is major.
Because people are so... I've talked to people who are like, I don't want to take medication because I don't know what it's going to do to me. And I don't want to, what are the very low dosages or... How can I stay away from it? So this is really important.
This is super because you hear the word stimulant and you get scared. You hear methyl, you get scared. You're like, oh, I don't want to be addicted. Yeah. And the thing is, the research is massive, 40 years of research on ADHD meds, multiple levels of improvements, right? And even with the attacks happening right now around ADHD and stimulants and medication, the thing to understand is, one, they're the most well-researched. ADHD is the most treatable disorder amongst the ones where it shows up. And ADHD meds are meant to enter and leave your system every 24 hours. They're not your SSRIs. They're not your mental health medications that you need 4 to 6 weeks, see how you're feeling, see what's going on. ADHD meds, within a week, you will know if it's working or not. If it's working and you've got like a minor side effect, the question is the side effect worth the benefit? And if you're looking at medication, and I tend to tell people, you want to look for medication if you're kind of in the moderate to severe category, but also if it's mild enough, but you feel like you just need a little bit of help to help you get some clarity so you can function, try it out. You're not going to get hooked on the med if you actually have ADHD because it's not boosting you beyond your baseline. It's bringing you to the baseline that you need. So if you think about like a canal with water in it, people with ADHD, their water levels are very low in the canal. What the meds do is raise the water level to what's functional in the canal. So all you're doing is bridging the deficit of what the brain chemicals are that have been studied that know within the brain how they're supposed to show up and what they're supposed to do. So your ADHD meds, stimulants and non-stimulants, you will not be addicted to them because if that were the case, you wouldn't forget to take them all the time. So many folks with ADHD, I forgot to take my meds because you have ADHD, friend. So you're not addicted if you're forgetting to take your meds. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So there's that piece to try and demystify and destigmatize medication.
Yeah.
Is it necessary for everyone? No. But medication won't make you remember to go to the doctor. Like you have to do your own part. Figuring, is it a planner? Is it something digital? A lot of people with ADHD, we don't have an internal voice that tells us stuff. We don't have an internal, we don't have a mind's eye or a mind's voice where we can see, oh, I gotta see this thing and I gotta do it. We don't have a mind's eye or a mind's voice. We don't have a voice that reminds us to do things. Yeah. So for ADHD, a lot of things have to be external. Oh, wow. So then I'm a visual person. Okay, how visual are you, right? I knew that I had planners for years. I would color code based on what I needed to do because it helped me remember at a glance. I needed it to be external. And then when I had a planner, I realized I have to keep this open so that I can actually see things because if it's out of sight, it's out of mind. That's why you lose stuff all the time. It's out of sight, out of mind. And so you'll do things like anchoring practices. When I walk in, I take my keys off, I hang them by the door. And you have to like narrate that to yourself so that something starts sticking. It has to be external. You can't trust to think and remember. You can't trust to see into the future and remember. You have to have things visually out there, and you have to have someone that tells you something outside of you. You have to have someone that knows that if you're talking a lot, they're going to pat your leg and be like, hey, hey, hey. You have to have those external reminders because they're not built internally inside of you. And there's nothing wrong with that. Your brain doesn't process information like everyone else's. So how do you help it process better with or without medication?
So you set up these cues to help. And the medication, it sounds like just kind of brings you, so stabilizes you to a sense, not stabilized, but just sort of brings you to a point where then you can
function and pay attention. Yes, you can focus more, you can organize more, you get a little bit of time between stimulus and response. And then when you recognize when this happens, this means this, you can do a lot more cause and effect on your own because the medication slows things down enough so you've got the ability to manage your inhibition control, your impulse control. You have space for more working memory. Like it kind of makes that funnel a little bit bigger because the top funnel is so large. And you have the cognitive flexibility to not be so rigid and stuck.
Yeah.
And so those three things, those executive functions, you can't teach someone to organize.
Yeah.
You can't teach executive functions. You coach, you support, and you restructure the environment so that it builds.
Supports that.
It builds it in there for you. There are people who are motivated like, what would you hate if this happened enough to do this other thing you need to do? And it sounds harsh, like, I'd hate for that to happen, so that's why I'm going to do it. Why don't you just do it because it's the right thing? Because my brain doesn't process information like everyone else's.
Yeah.
So I'm not going to. But if I don't want that alarm to go off and wake up somebody who's sleeping, that's the motivation for me to do whatever this other thing I need to do.
Yeah, that makes sense. So for our listeners that might feel like, oh, this sounds pretty familiar, kind of like what you went through for yourself. I love what you said earlier, find a therapist, find someone that can help diagnose this for you or at least tell you where you're at. What are the first steps? What would you want them to know?
You want to be diagnosed by someone who's going to do more than take you through a piece of paper that's a scale. There are a lot of questions that we want to ask to figure out how your ADHD shows up for you. You could have it, a sibling could have it, your parents could have it. Okay, but how does it show up for you? Because it's just as unique as you are. You want to talk about medication because there are a lot of compensatory skills that come in to bring us from where we are to what neurotypical culture wants us to be.
Yeah.
How do you feel about working extra hard to just kind of be at someone else's baseline? Can you sit with that? Are you okay with the fact that it might take you a lot more effort to do some of these things? And then we're talking about work environments. We're talking about school environments. We're talking about parenting and partnering and how all of these things load up onto people where, it's overwhelming. There are things that you might learn the hard way. Okay, is there anything we can offload? Anything we can do differently? Is there anything you want to learn that you want to improve your skill set? Because it's probably worth it. You want to win. So find someone that's going to actually engage you about your symptoms and ask you, where are they causing the most disruption? Are you okay with that disruption, or do you want to change or fix any of it? And then that's where you start targeting the work. How do I get somebody else to believe me? I don't know. But what I do know is if I can help you gain connection with your environment, with yourself, to make the changes that matter to you, we're doing our job. Yeah. Bring anybody else along the way, fine. Talk about medications. Here's a medication tracking form. Here are all the different medications you can ask for and ask about. Everything about ADHD is about, one, diagnosis, but then two, there's this acronym I saw this week that I thought was amazing, and it says, do you have the desire to manage your ADHD? And D is for diagnosis. Can't handle a problem if you don't know what it is. E is for education. Get educated about what ADHD is and how it shows up for you. Learn everything you can about ADHD. Buy all the books. That's why I got certified as a clinical services provider, because I wanted to know everything I could about ADHD, because I'm like, I got to make it for lost time. So that's DE. S is structure. Coping strategies. Structure your environment. How do you build it so that everything is supportive of you thriving and of you being well and of you accepting you and being compassionate to you and loving the fact that you go get yourself a little treat when you had a productive day and you made it to the mailbox, you made it to the bank, and you made it to get your oil changed. All in the same thing. Go get a treat. Go get some fries. I am so serious because
I love that.
No one else is looking for you. No one else is checking for you. So you got to check for yourself, which is really, really good. So you structure that, and then your individual responsibility to yourself. There's so much that you have missed out on because you weren't diagnosed. You were untreated. You were unmedicated. You were undiagnosed. And there's a lot around like responsibility to and for self that you can benefit from by being so deeply compassionate to yourself, learning your ADHD, learning the brilliance that comes with it. People push back a little bit about, oh, it's your superpower. They don't necessarily like it. But what does it mean to you? If it's your superpower. How does that work for you? What is your ADHD cape? Own it and make it wonderful for you, because you have enough that might be going against you. And then the last thing was energy. Mind your energy. Don't give up on yourself. I love that I got diagnosed at 43 because it helped me understand my kids. Stuff that I knew that I wondered about, I understood my little one's messy room. I'm like, oh, that's me.
Aw.
Okay, so now her room is messy and now I know what to do.
Aw.
Now
See,
I know
and
how to
this is-
help her.
This is beautiful too to hear, because these are, I mean, parents are seeing their kids.
Yes.
And they're wired away where there's a messy room, or you're not picking up, or
Picking
you're not
up
doing
on it.
things.
Yes,
You're not moving
yes.
fast enough.
Mhm.
Like that means that there's something, like they're just purposefully trying to do
doing it.
things.
Yes, yes, yes.
And that these are things that they can pay attention to and try to understand.
Yes, yes, yes.
So I love that you say that.
Well,
you can
and
understand your kids better.
The stats are that ADHD is like the second most inheritable thing that you can get from your parents after height.
Yeah.
Like it's a major, major thing. And if we as parents don't recognize what our kiddos are going through, my goodness, the compassion I have for my kids. Because I didn't get it. I'm not going to put my kid in the basement because her room is messy.
Yeah.
But I have to go in there every day and say, hey, sweetheart, what can I help you with? How can I help you with this thing? And, you know, other moms that I talk to that have ADHD, recognizing it in their kids, realizing like, I can't give her more than one thing to do at a time. So I got to give her one thing, then we check in, and then we find another thing, and then we check in. So you learn to pace life differently. Yeah. The more informed you are as a person, as a parent, as a partner, there's so many areas of life that are impacted.
Wow. Are you taking clients?
Goodness, I think I just got to a point where I'm not taking clients.
I was going to recommend, but if you have recommendations, and I'll put links in the on this particular episode just for those who are wondering what direction to go. Maybe it's articles, maybe it's books that you recommend. But if there's people that you recommend, especially here locally, Utah folks, that might be able to, that'd be good too. We'll put all that in the.
There's a study that I want to replicate about ADHD and support with adults, and I want to replicate this study for Black and Brown communities, and I want to create more group workshops. So far as taking clients individually for mental health therapy, no, but building workshops, building coaching and consultation. And like if people just want to get an assessment and like talk it through, absolutely. Yeah. Like, I mean, if you want insurance to pay for it, it needs to be through the mental health route, but it's not a lot to get an ADHD coach, to get a life coach, to get an ADHD consultant, to get a personal organizer to help you manage and navigate your life. There are so many resources besides therapy that are accessible. And that's, I think, one of the really good things about social media and a lot more knowledge accessibility. It's more knowledgeable. The stigma is reduced. And there's more than one way to get help besides therapy. Therapy to process all the things for little you that got loaded and burdened onto you because you were just told all these shameful things. But coaching, consulting, workshops, psychoeducation, everything that you can learn in a small community of learners will help you change your life. Yeah. So that is what my next thing is.
I love it. I'm going to keep an eye out because you are incredible.
Thank
this
you.
conversation, I mean, even myself, I'm thinking about my little one. I'm thinking about the people in my family who are, they're not sure if they have ADHD, but they're worried they're scared. There's like, there's a scared, and then there's people who have been diagnosed with ADHD. So I'm thinking about all the people I love, and and just the wealth of knowledge that you gave me. It's so powerful.
Well, thank you.
I just appreciate you so much. Keep doing the work that you're doing, and I'm just going to keep an eye on you.
Oh, I appreciate it. Thank you so much.
All the great things you're going to accomplish.
I appreciate it. I know that we all get through this together, and if there's a way that I can help others who are in the same boat as I am, and we're just all trying to do it one foot in front of the other, I'm down. I'm down. I'm ready.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thanks.